Hello, sweetheart. Listen closely. When you hear the phrase, focus on yourself, it may sound selfish at first, almost as if you are cutting yourself off from the world or abandoning those around you. But the truth is, focusing on yourself is the most profound gift you can offer both to yourself and to others. Because how can you pour from an empty cup? How can you bring peace, wisdom, or strength to anyone else if your own inner world is fractured, restless, and unprepared? To focus inward is not to reject the world, but to strengthen the part of you that engages with it. It is to become the root of the tree, hidden in the soil, gathering all the nourishment and stability that allows the branches to flourish in every direction. Without strong roots, the branches fall with the first strong wind. Without inner strength, life breaks you at every turn. The power of self-centered growth lies in understanding that you are your own foundation. People often spend their entire lives chasing approval, chasing money, chasing relationships, thinking that their worth will be built by what lies outside them. But external things are unstable. People change, circumstances shift, money disappears, and attention fades. If your sense of strength depends on something so fragile, your power will always be temporary. You will always be at the mercy of forces you cannot control. But when you turn your focus inward, when you cultivate your own mind, your discipline, your clarity, then you no longer depend on what comes and goes. You are not weakened by the loss of anything because your center of gravity rests within you unshakable. This is why self-focus is not selfishness. True selfishness is being so empty that you constantly demand from others what you cannot give yourself: attention, validation, reassurance, even love. But when you have turned inward and nourished your own core, you don't need to demand. You overflow. You are capable of giving because you are whole. You are able to stand alone because your foundation is strong. Think of it like building a house. If you only decorate the outside, paint the walls, and polish the windows, the house may look beautiful to others, but if the foundation is cracked, the whole thing will collapse in time. Strength must come from what is unseen. And that is exactly what self-growth is, building your unseen foundation until it can carry the weight of any storm. To become unstoppable, you must first stop scattering your energy across the world. Stop wasting your life trying to fit into everyone else's expectations. Each time you focus outward at the expense of inward growth, you are draining yourself. The truth is, the world doesn't become better when you destroy yourself for it. It becomes better when you strengthen yourself to the point where your actions carry depth, power, and authenticity. A man or woman who is centered, grounded, and rooted within themselves is more valuable to the world than 100 people who live in constant reaction to external demands. Self-centered growth also gives you clarity. When you look inward, you begin to see which of your desires are authentic and which are simply echoes of society's voice. You learn to ask, is this what I truly want? Or is this what I was told to want? Is this the path of my soul? Or is it the distraction of noise? And when you learn to strip away everything false, everything borrowed, what remains is pure. What remains is yours. This clarity cannot be taken away from you. No one can give it to you, and no one can steal it from you. It is your true compass, and with it, you cannot be lost. But focusing on yourself is not easy. It requires discipline, patience, and the courage to confront uncomfortable truths. It requires you to look at your flaws, not with shame, but with honesty. It requires you to admit where you have been weak, where you have been avoiding growth, where you have allowed distractions to dominate your life. Yet it is exactly this confrontation that makes you unbreakable. Because what you face, you master, and what you run from will always control you. When you commit to your own growth, you slowly begin to notice a transformation. The things that once consumed you, envy, fear, the need for attention, begin to lose their hold. You are no longer controlled by who praises you or who criticizes you. You no longer feel the desperate need to be noticed because you have noticed yourself. You no longer chase after the world because the world begins to sense the strength of your presence. This is the paradox of self-focus. When you stop begging for attention and instead build yourself, the world turns its head to see what you have become. And from that point, you are unstoppable. Not because you dominate others, but because nothing dominates you. Not because you seek control, but because you have mastered the only thing that truly matters, yourself. The storms of life will still come, but you will not be swept away. People may still doubt you, but their doubt will not weaken you. Obstacles will still arise, but they will only sharpen your strength. You will walk into the world not as a beggar, but as a creator. And that is the ultimate power. To create from within, to move forward with clarity, and to stand so firmly in yourself that nothing outside can move you against your will. When you hear the call to focus on yourself, do not mistake it for selfishness. See it for what it is, the path to becoming whole, the path to becoming strong, the path to becoming unstoppable. Silence has always carried a certain mystery. People often underestimate it because we live in a world that glorifies noise. We are taught to speak up, to shout our opinions, to constantly be present in the crowd. We are told that the louder we are, the more we matter. Yet the truth is quite the opposite. Real strength does not need to announce itself. Real power is not found in noise, but in silence. It is the quiet force that cannot be shaken, the still presence that demands respect without asking for it. Silence, when embraced with discipline, becomes the breeding ground of clarity, focus, and unstoppable momentum. When you are silent, you are not empty, you are gathering. Think of an archer pulling back a bow. In that moment of tension and stillness, nothing seems to happen. There is no loud explosion, no grand announcement, only silence. But within that silence lies immense power. The longer the bow is drawn, the greater the release. This is how silence works in your life. While others waste energy on noise, on gossip, on constant chatter, you are building strength in stillness. You are conserving energy, focusing it, shaping it. And when the time comes to act, you release with such force that the world cannot ignore you. Most people fear silence because silence exposes the truth. When you are alone and quiet, you begin to hear your own thoughts. You cannot hide behind distractions. You cannot drown your fears in constant entertainment. You are faced with yourself, raw and unfiltered. But this confrontation is what creates growth. If you can sit in silence with yourself, if you can confront the voice of doubt and the shadow of fear, then nothing outside of you can shake you. The enemy is not the noise of the world, it is your own unmastered mind. Silence forces you to master it. Discipline in silence is not just about withholding words, it is about training your entire being to resist the urge to waste energy. Each time you engage in useless arguments, each time you explain yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you, each time you spill your thoughts to people who do not value them, you are scattering your power. Silence teaches you to conserve it. You no longer feel the need to respond to every insult, to prove yourself to every skeptic, to explain your path to every stranger. You realize that your energy is sacred and not everyone deserves access to it. And in that restraint, you become powerful. Silence also sharpens perception. When you stop speaking, you begin to hear. When you stop rushing to be noticed, you begin to see. The world reveals itself to those who are still enough to observe it. You start noticing details others overlook, the subtle intentions in people's words, the hidden truths behind their actions, the opportunities that noise drowns out. Silence is not passive. It is awareness. And awareness is the root of power. The one who sees more clearly always moves more effectively than the one blinded by noise. There is a discipline to silence that feels heavy at first, because the ego resists it. The ego wants to be heard, to be recognized, to be seen as important. It thrives on noise. But when you train yourself to embrace silence, you weaken the grip of the ego. You no longer chase attention. You no longer care who is watching. You realize that true importance is not in being seen, but in becoming unshakable whether anyone sees you or not. This is where silence transforms from emptiness into strength. It is the rejection of vanity and the embrace of depth. To be silent does not mean to do nothing. It means to act without broadcasting. It means to build quietly, to grow consistently, to progress without announcing every step. The oak tree does not make noise as it grows, but its strength towers over everything when the time comes. In the same way, your silence allows you to expand without interference. It protects your vision from the doubts and opinions of others. It shields your growth from unnecessary exposure. By the time the world sees what you have become, it is too late for them to stop you. Silence also cultivates respect. Words are cheap. Anyone can speak them. But silence carries weight. When you are silent in moments where others expect noise, you show control. When you walk into a room without the need to dominate it, but with the calmness of someone who is already whole, people sense it. They may not understand why, but they feel it. Silence, when combined with discipline, creates an aura that cannot be faked. It is the quiet confidence of someone who does not need to prove because they already know. This is why silence makes you unstoppable. It shields your energy, it builds your clarity, it commands respect without asking for it. It transforms you from a reactionary being into a grounded force, while others are distracted by the need to be loud. You are quietly sharpening your mind, strengthening your spirit, and preparing for decisive action. And when the time comes, your silence will turn into a strike so powerful that no one will forget it. Silence is not the absence of sound, it is the presence of strength. It is the discipline of holding yourself steady while the world trembles with noise. And when you master this, you no longer chase victory, you embody it. You no longer beg for recognition, your very presence demands it. And that is why silence is not weakness. It is the mark of someone who has chosen mastery over chaos, depth over distraction, and focus over noise. It is the mark of someone truly unstoppable. One of the greatest prisons people live in is the constant need for approval. From the moment we are children, we are conditioned to look outward for validation. We are praised when we behave in ways that please others, and we are criticized when we do not. Over time, this creates a subtle chain around the mind. We learn to measure our worth not by our own standards, but by the opinions of others. We strive for applause, likes, attention, and recognition, believing that if others approve of us, then we must be valuable. Yet this is an illusion, and one of the most dangerous ones, because as long as your worth is tied to external approval, you will never be free and you will never be unstoppable. Cutting the strings of approval is not about rejecting people or becoming cold to the world. It is about reclaiming your freedom. Imagine a puppet controlled by strings. Every movement it makes is dictated by the pull of someone else's hand. The puppet does not decide. It reacts. This is what happens to you when you allow approval to control your actions. You dress to be liked. You speak to be accepted. You work not because it fulfills you, but because it pleases others. Your life is no longer yours. It is a performance for an audience whose tastes change with the wind. The truth is, people are fickle. One day they admire you, the next they criticize you. One day they cheer, the next they laugh. If you build your identity on such unstable ground, you will collapse with every shift of opinion. To cut these strings, you must first realize that approval is not real power. Approval is a fleeting echo, easily given, easily taken away. Real power comes from alignment with your own truth. When you stop asking, "What will they think of me?" and start asking, "What do I think of myself?" you step into a different world. In that moment, your decisions begin to come from strength, not fear. You no longer beg for acceptance because you are no longer starved within. You have fed yourself with authenticity. This does not mean people will not disapprove of you. In fact, The more you stand in your own truth, the more you will attract criticism, because you will no longer fit the mold others expect of you. But here lies the beauty. Disapproval loses its power when you no longer need approval. Criticism becomes background noise, a passing cloud that cannot touch the mountain. The more you practice this, the freer you become. And freedom is the soil from which unstoppable strength grows. Most people fear disapproval because they confuse it with rejection. They think, if people disapprove of me, I will be alone. But solitude is not the enemy, it is the birthplace of clarity. When you cut the strings of approval, you may walk alone for a time. Yet in that solitude, you discover who you truly are. You begin to see your strengths, your weaknesses, your desires, not through the eyes of others, but through your own. And when you return to the world from that place of self-awareness, you carry an authenticity that no approval can buy. People respect those who respect themselves. Ironically, the moment you stop seeking approval is the moment you gain true influence. The chains of approval also rob you of courage. Many dreams have died not because they were impossible, but because someone feared being laughed at. Many voices have been silenced, not because they had nothing to say, but because they feared others would not listen. Approval ties you to fear, and fear ties you to inaction. By cutting the strings, you liberate yourself to take risks, to fail, to rise again. You no longer hesitate because of what others might think. You move because it is what you must do. This is where greatness is born, not in the safety of approval, but in the danger of authenticity. Consider how fragile approval really is. One wrong word, one mistake, and the crowd can turn against you. Do you want to build your life on something so unstable? Or would you rather build it on the unshakable foundation of self-respect? When you live for approval, you are enslaved to the changing winds of opinion. When you live for yourself, you become the wind. You create, you move, you direct your life with force, regardless of who approves or disapproves. Cutting the strings does not mean arrogance. It does not mean ignoring wisdom or refusing guidance. It means you listen without being enslaved. You hear criticism, but it does not control you. You value advice, but you weigh it against your own compass. You remain open, but not dependent. This balance is the mark of a free person, someone who can walk among others without being chained by their judgments. To become unstoppable, you must ask yourself a hard question. Who are you when no one is watching? Who are you when there is no applause, no likes, no one to praise or condemn you? From that moment, your actions flow with power because they are not diluted by the need for permission. Your energy is no longer wasted trying to please. It is focused entirely on becoming. And nothing is stronger than a human being who moves with clarity, free from the chains of approval. Let the world approve or disapprove, it no longer matters. Your task is to live authentically, to honor your own path, and to trust that your worth is not measured by the applause of others, but by the integrity of your soul. Once you embrace this, you will find that you are no longer a puppet. You are the master of your own strings. And that is the essence of becoming unstoppable. The greatest enemy you will ever face is not outside of you. It is not the critic who doubts you, not the rival who competes with you, not even the hardships that block your path. The greatest enemy is the one that lives within your uncontrolled mind. This is the silent saboteur that convinces you to give up before you begin, the restless voice that whispers doubt into every ambition, the shadow that magnifies fear until it paralyzes you. External challenges are temporary, but the mind, if left unmastered, becomes a lifelong prison. To overcome the world, you must first overcome yourself. The uncontrolled mind is like a wild horse. Untamed, it runs in circles, exhausting itself without ever reaching a destination. It pulls you into distractions, cravings, and endless anxieties. It reacts impulsively to every small irritation, to every passing emotion, to every fleeting thought. When you are enslaved by this wild horse, your energy scatters in 100 directions. You are constantly moving, but never progressing. To be unstoppable, you must become the rider who holds the reins, who directs the force of the mind toward a chosen path. Without control, the mind destroys. With control, the mind creates miracles. Much of human suffering does not come from the events themselves, but from the stories the mind tells about them. Two people can experience the same difficulty, yet one becomes stronger while the other collapses. The difference is not in the event, but in the mind's interpretation of it. The uncontrolled mind exaggerates pain, attaches to fear, and projects failure into the future. It drowns you in what-ifs and worst-case scenarios, making you a prisoner of things that have not even happened. When you recognize this, you begin to see that life is not lived in events, it is lived in perception. Master perception, and you master life. But mastery does not come without struggle. The mind resists control because chaos feels comfortable to it. Noise, distraction, overthinking. These are the habits the mind has built over years of conditioning. To bring discipline to the mind is like reshaping a river that has flowed in the same direction for decades. It fights back, it floods, it refuses. Yet persistence reshapes even the strongest currents. Each time you bring your attention back, each time you discipline your focus, you carve a new path for the river. Over time, the wild horse learns to follow your command. An uncontrolled mind thrives on reaction. It explodes with anger at insults, collapses with fear at obstacles, grows restless at silence. The disciplined mind, however, chooses its response. It does not deny emotions, but it refuses to be ruled by them. When anger arises, it notices without reacting. When fear appears, it studies it without surrendering. This detachment is not coldness. It is freedom. For the one who can choose their response is stronger than the one who merely reacts. This is the difference between being a prisoner of your mind and being its master. Think of how much potential is wasted because people never confront this enemy within. Dreams abandoned, talents unused, opportunities missed, all because the mind whispered, "You're not ready," or "You'll fail," or "What will they think?" The world is filled with people defeated not by life, but by their own thoughts. To be unstoppable, you must silence this inner resistance, not by ignoring it, but by observing it, questioning it, mastering it. You must learn to separate yourself from the noise of your mind, to see that you are not the voice that doubts, but the awareness that notices it. Once you grasp this, the enemy begins to lose its power. Training the mind requires daily discipline. It is not enough to wish for focus. You must cultivate it. Sit in silence, confront your thoughts, and practice bringing your attention back when it wanders. Resist the urge to drown in distractions. Feed your mind with strength through what you read, watch, and think. Just as the body grows strong with exercise, the mind grows strong with consistent practice. Discipline may feel heavy at first, but it is the very weight that builds unshakable power. And once the mind is trained, it becomes your greatest ally. Because the truth is, the same mind that can destroy you can also make you unstoppable. When focused, the mind generates vision. When disciplined, it creates resilience. When mastered, it becomes a force greater than any obstacle. Enemy within becomes the greatest weapon. But it is up to you to decide whether your mind will be your prison or your liberation. Ask yourself, are you riding your mind or is your mind riding you? Are you directing your thoughts or are your thoughts directing you? The answer to these questions determines everything. For the one who conquers the enemy within has nothing left to fear from the world outside. The storms may come, the critics may shout, the obstacles may rise, but none of it matters when you are no longer at war with yourself. You walk with calmness, with clarity, with unstoppable strength. And that is the secret. The greatest enemy is also the greatest teacher. Master it, and you master life. Consistency is the quiet force that separates those who dream from those who achieve. Everyone is capable of ambition. Everyone can imagine a better version of themselves. But very few have the discipline to show up day after day, regardless of how they feel, regardless of who is watching, regardless of whether the world applauds them or not. Consistency is unglamorous. It does not draw attention. It does not dazzle in the moment. Yet it is precisely this quiet persistence that shapes character, builds mastery, and creates unstoppable momentum. Without consistency, even the strongest burst of motivation fades into nothing. With consistency, even the smallest effort compounds into greatness. Think of a stone struck by drops of water. A single drop does nothing. A handful of drops seem insignificant. But when the water continues to fall, drop after drop, year after year, even the hardest stone is carved and reshaped. That is the power of consistency. Each small action, repeated with discipline, creates change that no single act of force could achieve. The world celebrates sudden victories. But the truth is that every victory is built upon countless invisible repetitions, hours of practice, days of persistence, years of refusing to quit. The undisciplined mind craves intensity over consistency. It wants to sprint, to feel the rush of energy, to achieve something quickly and then rest. But life is not a sprint, it is a marathon. Those who burn brightly for a moment and then collapse never reach their true potential. It is the steady, disciplined rhythm of consistent effort that carries you to mastery. This is why discipline is essential. Motivation is fleeting, but discipline shows up when motivation has disappeared. Discipline says, I will do it not because I feel like it, but because I said I would. This is the seed of becoming unstoppable. Consistency builds trust with yourself. Each time you commit to an action and follow through, no matter how small, you send a signal to your subconscious that you can rely on yourself. Over time, this trust becomes confidence, and this confidence becomes power. Most people fail not because they lack ability, but because they break promises to themselves. They start, then stop, they commit, then quit. They want the reward without embracing the repetition. The result is a life scattered with half-finished attempts and abandoned goals. To be consistent is to refuse this cycle, to say, I will finish what I start, even if progress feels invisible. What makes consistency powerful is that it compounds. One disciplined act today may not change much, but repeated daily it grows into something unstoppable. Reading a few pages each day builds wisdom. Training the body daily builds strength. Practicing a skill each day builds mastery. The results may be invisible in the beginning, but one day others will look at you and call you talented, when in truth you simply refuse to stop showing up. Talent is often nothing more than consistency disguised as genius. Consistency also protects you from the storms of emotion. There will be days you feel tired, discouraged, uninspired. If you rely only on how you feel, you will give up easily. But discipline detaches action from emotion. It says, I will continue regardless, and in this persistence, you discover something extraordinary. Often the days you least feel like showing up are the days that matter most. They are the days that strengthen your resilience, the days that separate you from the crowd. Anyone can work hard when they feel inspired. The unstoppable are those who work hard when inspiration is nowhere to be found. Life constantly tests your consistency. Obstacles will rise, distractions will tempt you, failure will try to convince you to quit. But this is exactly where consistency reveals its power. Each time you continue despite difficulty, you forge strength. Each time you resist distraction, you sharpen focus. Each time you rise after failure, you build resilience. Slowly, your consistent actions harden into habits, and your habits shape your destiny. Success is not a matter of luck. It is the inevitable result of what you do repeatedly. Consistency is not perfection. It does not demand that you never falter. It only demands that you return again and again to the path. A missed day is not failure. Giving up entirely is. True discipline is not about never falling, but about refusing to stay down. The one who keeps returning, who keeps trying, who keeps moving forward, no matter how slow, eventually becomes unstoppable. Because consistency does not rely on bursts of strength. It relies on endurance, and endurance always outlasts intensity. If you want to transform your life, stop waiting for the perfect moment. Stop expecting sudden breakthroughs. Begin with small, deliberate actions. Repeat them every day without fail. Guard your discipline as if it was sacred, because it is the bridge between who you are and who you want to be. Others will get distracted. Others will chase quick rewards. But you, if you remain consistent, you will build something they cannot imagine. And when you look back after years of persistence, you will see that what seemed impossible was never achieved by chance, but by the quiet, relentless power of consistency. That is how you become unstoppable. Not by one grand act, but by 1,000 small ones, repeated with discipline until they shape a life of strength, clarity, and greatness. This reminds us of something profoundly simple, yet often overlooked in our constant pursuit of more: the beauty and power of stillness. In a world that glorifies speed, productivity, and endless striving, the act of being still may appear to some as laziness or stagnation. Yet stillness is not about doing nothing. It is about creating space where awareness can deepen, where clarity can emerge, and where the noise of life loses its grip on us. When we cultivate stillness, we begin to notice the subtle patterns of our own thoughts, the quiet truths buried beneath our distractions, and the wisdom that arises when the mind is no longer scattered. It is in these moments of quiet that we find the strength to move forward with greater intention and deeper alignment. Imagine a river during a storm. Its waters churn violently, carrying mud and debris, making it impossible to see what lies beneath. But once the storm passes and the river calms, the sediment settles and the water clears. Our minds are much the same. When overwhelmed by stress, fear, or constant activity, clarity is hidden. But when we allow stillness, our inner river clears, and we can see not only the surface of life, but the deeper truths that guide us. This clarity does not come from pushing harder or doing more, but from resting, breathing, and listening to the silence within. Stillness is also a form of discipline. It requires us to resist the pull of endless distractions, the urge to constantly seek stimulation, and the habit of filling every empty moment with noise. To be still is to confront ourselves without the masks of busyness, and this can be uncomfortable. We often avoid silence because it reveals truths we would rather not face: our fears, our doubts, our wounds. Yet, it is precisely in facing these truths that transformation begins. By allowing stillness, we learn to sit with discomfort, to observe without judgment, and to grow stronger in the presence of our vulnerabilities. In stillness, we connect with the present moment in its purest form. Too often, life is lived in fragments, half in the past, burdened by regrets, and half in the future, weighed down by anxieties. The present slips through our fingers unnoticed. Stillness anchors us here and now. It teaches us that the present moment is enough, that life is not always about rushing toward the next milestone, but about experiencing what already is. This is where peace resides, not in a perfect future, but in a calm acceptance of the present. Stillness is not the enemy of progress. It is its foundation. Great strength is born from the ability to pause before action, to reflect before decision, and to gather energy before movement. Just as an archer draws back the bow in silence before releasing the arrow, so too must we withdraw into stillness before we can move forward with precision. The paradox is that by slowing down, we prepare ourselves to advance more effectively. Without stillness, Our actions are frantic and scattered. With it, they are purposeful and powerful. This also highlights that stillness is not merely about personal peace, it extends into how we interact with the world. A still mind creates stillness in communication. When we are not driven by impulse or agitation, we listen more deeply. We speak more clearly, and we act more compassionately. Our presence becomes steady, and others feel anchored around us. In this way, cultivating stillness is not only an act of self-care, but also a gift to others. We become a calming force in a chaotic world. Practicing stillness does not require retreating to a monastery or spending hours in meditation. It can be found in simple daily moments, sitting quietly with your breath, watching the sunrise without reaching for your phone, or taking a walk in nature while paying attention to the rhythm of your steps. These small acts of presence are gateways to deeper stillness. Over time, they transform how we approach challenges, how we carry burdens, and how we experience joy. The message of stillness is about trust. Trust that you do not need to constantly chase, control, or force outcomes. Trust that life unfolds in its rhythm, and that clarity will come when the noise subsides. Stillness teaches us that the answers we seek often lie within us, waiting to be uncovered when we finally stop long enough to listen. It is a reminder that you are not defined by how much you do, but by the depth of your being. To embrace stillness is to embrace the wisdom of life itself, steady, quiet, and endlessly profound. When we speak of true growth, we must acknowledge that it rarely arrives dressed in comfort. Growth demands struggle, discomfort, and the dismantling of everything familiar. This is the paradox of life. The very things we often try to avoid, pain, hardship, and resistance, are the exact conditions that shape our strength. It is through being tested, through being challenged beyond what we thought we could endure, that we uncover the deeper reserves of resilience within us. A seed, after all, must break apart in the dark soil before it can rise into the light. So it is with us. The breaking is not the end, it is the beginning of becoming. What makes people extraordinary is not that life spared them from trials, but that they chose to keep moving despite them. Every person you admire, every figure who embodies greatness, has been tested in ways unseen. They have endured moments of despair, rejection, failure, and even betrayal. But what separates them from the rest is not luck. It is the refusal to allow those moments to define them. They understood that pain was not a punishment, but preparation. Each hardship refining their spirit, sharpening their focus, and teaching them lessons they could never have learned otherwise. The storm that tried to break them became the storm that awakened their power. Many resist this truth. They cling to comfort, to the illusion of safety, and in doing so, they weaken themselves. Avoiding discomfort makes one fragile, easily shaken by the smallest inconvenience. Life is relentless, and it will not spare anyone from difficulty. The choice then is simple. Either embrace the struggle and allow it to forge you into someone unshakable, or hide from it and remain bound by mediocrity. Those who grow unstoppable are the ones who accept this reality and meet it head on, knowing that the fire which burns them is also the fire that forges them. Growth is rarely visible in the moment. When you are deep in the struggle, it feels as though you are drowning, as though nothing is changing. But time reveals the transformation. Just as a muscle must tear before it grows stronger, your spirit too must endure moments of breaking before it becomes unyielding. This is why patience is vital. Too often, people quit before the breakthrough, unable to see that the very resistance they despise is the proof that they are leveling up. Struggle is evidence of progress. It means you are moving beyond your old self, stretching into something greater. One must also understand that struggle brings clarity. When life strips away ease, it also strips away illusion. You begin to see who truly stands with you and who merely lingers for convenience. You learn what truly matters and what was only a distraction. Hardship has a way of cutting through the noise, forcing you to prioritize your values, your time, and your energy. Through suffering, you grow not only in strength, but also in wisdom. It teaches you to differentiate between temporary discomfort and permanent harm, between what should be let go and what must be fought for. Struggle humbles the ego. It reminds us that we are not invincible, that we must bow before the greater forces of life. Yet in that humility, there is empowerment, because when you acknowledge your weakness, you discover the possibility of becoming strong. When you admit that life is difficult, you stop resenting the difficulty and start learning how to work with it. This humility allows transformation to occur, because you no longer resist reality, you align yourself with it. Without struggle, there is no reason to persevere, no reason to cultivate consistency. It is through difficulty that one learns the power of small, repeated efforts. Struggle trains you to rise every time you fall, to focus when distractions scream, to remain calm when chaos surrounds you. This discipline, once forged, does not only help you in one area of life, but extends into every part of it: relationships, work, health, and inner peace. It becomes the foundation upon which true freedom is built. In truth, no one should fear struggle. It is not the enemy, but the silent architect of your future self. Each hardship is a lesson disguised as pain, each setback a doorway to resilience. The more you embrace this, the less intimidating life becomes. Challenges cease to feel like barriers and begin to feel like opportunities. You start to see that the mountain was never meant to stop you, but to reveal how high you could climb. The next time you are faced with difficulty, remind yourself, this is the process of becoming. Do not run from it. Do not despise it. Meet it with courage and let it transform you. For it is through the storm that you will rise unshakable, and it is through the struggle that you will discover the unstoppable force you were always meant to be. Every individual who chooses to live authentically, to remain true to themselves despite external pressures, inevitably walks a path that demands solitude and unwavering faith. This keynote highlights that authenticity is not about winning approval or validation, but about the courage to carry one's own truth, even when the world misunderstands or rejects it. The reality is that many people compromise who they are because they fear isolation. They bend, shift, and mold themselves to fit expectations, often losing their essence in the process. Yet real power lies in the refusal to betray one's core, because a person who honors their authenticity gains a strength that cannot be fabricated or borrowed. The solitude that accompanies such a journey is not a weakness, but a crucible refining one's resilience, independence, and clarity of purpose. Living authentically demands sacrifices. Relationships may fall away, opportunities may vanish, and society may attempt to punish nonconformity. Yet, each loss is in fact a purification, a clearing of false connections that could never sustain your true essence. When people are drawn to the mask you wear, they are never truly drawn to you. They are drawn to a performance. By stripping away that mask, you allow only those who see and respect the real you to remain. This might reduce the size of your circle, but it strengthens its integrity, replacing shallow interactions with meaningful bonds. It also frees you from the exhausting cycle of pretending, creating the space to grow without constraint. The strength of authenticity is not immediate. It builds gradually. At first, it feels like rebellion, as though you are defying the world. But over time, you realize it is not defiance at all. It is alignment. You are no longer expending energy trying to become what you are not, but channeling your energy toward what you naturally are. This creates momentum, clarity, and a sense of harmony within yourself. You stop second-guessing, stop questioning whether you belong, and begin to realize that you are exactly where you should be because you are being honest about who you are. This honesty radiates power, a power that influences others silently. People sense when someone is authentic. It creates trust, respect, and even admiration, because authenticity is rare in a world obsessed with appearances. This path, however, requires courage in abundance. Courage to walk away from environments that cannot hold your truth, courage to face criticism, and courage to endure silence when applause fades. Yet, in that silence, something profound happens. You discover your own voice. You realize you no longer need to shout to be heard or compromise to be seen. Your mere presence, grounded in truth, begins to speak louder than words. This transformation shapes not only how you see yourself, but how you respond to challenges. Instead of reacting to the world, you begin to act from your core, a position of strength that cannot be manipulated or shaken. The paradox of authenticity is that the more you embrace it, the more powerful you become, yet the less you crave power over others. Your strength is not in dominating or proving, but in simply being. You no longer chase recognition because you have already recognized yourself. This shifts the entire dynamic of your life. You attract opportunities and people that resonate with who you are, rather than who you pretended to be. The success that flows from this space is sustainable because it is built on truth, not illusion. Authenticity demands solitude, but solitude itself becomes a source of power. Teaches you to be at peace with yourself, to thrive without external approval, and to lead without needing followers. This keynote reminds us that while the authentic path may appear lonely, it is in fact the most liberating path of all. It frees you from the weight of falsehood, strengthens the journey through this speech, has been a deep reminder of life's fundamental truths. Every lesson points us back to the simple but often forgotten reality that strength, growth, and peace are not found in chasing what the world glorifies, but in cultivating inner discipline, silence, clarity, and authentic living. We are reminded that solitude is not weakness but power, that discipline is not restriction but freedom, that pain is not punishment but preparation, and that silence is not emptiness but strength. These are the building blocks of a life that cannot be shaken by circumstances or broken by the noise of others' opinions. The path to becoming unstoppable does not begin in the world outside, but in the world within. It is in mastering the mind, controlling the emotions, disciplining the desires, and focusing relentlessly on growth that one becomes truly powerful. Life will test, break, and challenge you, but those very trials are shaping you into who you are meant to become. The choice is always yours. Either complain and remain stuck, or endure and rise. When you walk away from this message, carry with you the conviction that every moment of silence, every ounce of discipline, every decision to stay focused, and every act of courage to walk alone if necessary, is building a version of you the world cannot ignore. Success, peace, and fulfillment are not gifts handed to you. They are earned by choosing a higher standard for yourself every day. And when you choose that path consistently, you will not only rise above mediocrity, but also embody the unstoppable force that this entire speech calls you to be.